The evening metro of a vast metropolis is always filled with stories that converge and diverge in the rumble of steel wheels. People hurry about their business, tired after a long day's work, sometimes lazily glancing at their phone screens or nodding off as they sway in their seats. In one of the cars today, there is a man known to millions from his roles on screen. This is Tom Hanks, an actor celebrated not only for his films, but also for his genuine humanity. He appears completely unaware of the hustle and bustle around him. Dressed in simple jeans, a comfortable sweatshirt, and a light jacket, he wears an ordinary cap that nearly obscures his face. In his hand, he carries a small sports bag. There is no sign of luxury or security, only a calm smile and the same desire to reach his destination as every other passenger. In the seats nearby, one notices a variety of people: an elderly woman burdened with heavy bags, a young couple absorbed in quiet conversation, and a businessman nervously checking his watch, as if every delay were a catastrophe. Also present is a tall man in a perfectly pressed suit, his tie impeccably matching his pocket square. He exchanges glances with a friend, occasionally casting a sidelong look at Tom Hanks and curling his lips into a sarcastic smile. It appears the two are convinced that the ordinary guy beside them has strayed far from where he belongs. Their behavior exudes arrogance as they whisper, glance at the actor, and laugh while pointing at his simple attire. Tom, of course, hears their remarks. Quiet as they are, they carry a tone of clear disapproval, yet he tries not to react. His thoughts lie elsewhere. He simply wants to be an ordinary person, to feel the pulse of the big city without spotlights or cameras. He slightly closes his eyes, immersing himself in the atmosphere of the car, where the sense of perfume, the gentle aroma of pastries from station kiosks, and the characteristic hum of the metro intermingle. The car stops, the doors open, and several more passengers board. One of them is a teenager with a guitar slung over his shoulder, who immediately takes an empty seat across from Tom. The boy slumps his shoulders in weariness, clearly having endured a long day, perhaps having spent it busking on the street. A couple of lovers who had been sitting near the entrance rise and leave, and in their place an elderly woman boards. Leaning on a cane, she appears very tired. Her clothes are faded, and her coat is long overdue for repair, yet her face radiates kindness. Noticing her difficulty, Tom stands up, ready to offer assistance, but the woman thanks him with a nod, indicating that all is well. Meanwhile, two men in suits continue to exchange glances and whispers. One of them, the one with the impeccable tie, finally decides to address Tom directly. Leaning in closer, he says in a quiet yet dismissive tone, "Don't you think that this place isn't meant for people without status?" His companion stifles a giggle. Tom turns his head toward them, smiles politely, and replies, "And is a special status really required to ride the metro?" The simplicity and calm in his voice irritate the man further. He narrows his eyes and shrugs. Actually, different people meet in places like these, but, there are unspoken rules about style, class, and behavior. Tom simply shrugs and averts his gaze, realizing that arguing is futile. He remembers all too well the biased attitudes he has encountered, and each time he concluded that appearance is merely a facade behind which a very different person might hide. As the car rattles through the darkness of a tunnel, Tom finds himself thinking that he wants to share a story, not about how he is a famous actor, but about moments in his life when he too felt out of place. He smiles softly as he recalls his youth, when he worked in a small theater on the outskirts of the city and believed he would never make it. Back then, he had to ride an old bus where people would constantly laugh at his stretched-out t-shirt or worn-out sneakers. At that moment, the teenager with the guitar sitting opposite seems to sense the mood, pulls out his instrument, and quietly begins to play a melody. The passengers involuntarily listen to the simple chords. Then Tom decides it's time to start a conversation. Leaning toward the teenager, he asks, "Will you play something you know best?" The boy looks at Tom with suspicion before replying, "Yes, I can play a song I composed myself, but I'm not sure if you'll like it." "Let's give it a try," encourages Tom, and genuine curiosity sparkles in his eyes. A simple yet moving melody fills the car, and an unexpected silence falls over it, as if everyone is waiting for something special. Tom hums along, subtly moving, his lips to catch the rhythm. The men in suits grimace, clearly not fond of this amateur performance, yet they dare not voice their discontent. Even the elderly woman by the window smiles faintly, tapping her cane in time with the music. When the song ends, the creaking of the wheels resumes. The teenager thanks Tom for his attention and bashfully lowers his gaze. Passengers exchange impressions. Some nod approvingly, while others turn to stare out of the window. Then one of the men in suits can't hold back. "Listen, have you decided to put on a concert here? Perhaps there are more suitable places for that than a metro car." His voice booms, drawing everyone's attention. The teenager becomes even more embarrassed, and Tom notices a flash of hurt in the boy's eyes. Tom calmly meets the man's gaze and replies, "And did the music really get in your way? No one was asking for money or being intrusive." "I don't care," snaps the man. "I just think that this is not the place for performances, especially for those who, well, clearly aren't part of the elite." The final remark sounds humiliating. Many passengers lower their eyes in embarrassment, unwilling to get involved in a quarrel. Yet inside Tom, a wave of indignation rises. He closes his eyes briefly, trying to remain calm. He has witnessed such injustice too many times, when people are judged solely by their appearance or social status. Instead of responding with anger, Tom chooses once again the path of goodwill. Quietly but firmly he states, "There are times in everyone's life when they feel out of place, but that's no reason to strip someone of their right to be themselves." His voice is soft, though the man with the tie snorts. Big words, but who needs them? To ease the tension, Tom decides to share a story from many years ago. Straightening up slightly, he surveys the car and says, "You know, when I was younger, I didn't have nice clothes or a stable job. I went to auditions, faced rejection, and sometimes couldn't even afford a proper meal. I remember once riding in a crowded bus just like this, and someone handed me an apple because they noticed how hungry I was. I was surprised by the gesture. He simply said, 'We can all find ourselves in a tough spot someday. And if I have an extra apple, why not share it?'" Tom smiles as he recalls that day. "That simple act of kindness turned my world upside down. I suddenly understood that appearance, clothing, and status are fleeting, but humanity is eternal." With these words, he looks at the teenager with the guitar as if trying to impart confidence. The boy nods gratefully, understanding that Tom's words come from a sincere desire to help. The elderly woman with the cane quietly sighs, as though moved by the story, while the man in the suit watches with disbelief, unable to fathom the purpose of all this romanticism. At the next station, the doors open and a new passenger enters, a young woman with a child of about 5 years old. The child is crying, clearly exhausted from the long journey, and the woman is trying to soothe him by gently stroking his head. With no seats available, she is forced to stand by the entrance, clutching her son close. It's evident she is worried, either hurrying somewhere or concerned about her child's fatigue. Without hesitation, Tom offers her his seat. "Please, take a seat," he says, and the woman thanks him with palpable relief. However, the man in the suit immediately comments, "Oh, these philanthropists. Do you really think that if you give up your seat, everyone will applaud you?" Tom says nothing in response, lowering his gaze. The child stops crying, occupied with a new toy the mother had taken from her bag, and the car begins to move again. Then an unexpected twist occurs. The young woman recognizes Tom Hanks, the famous actor. Her eyes widen, and, almost stuttering, she asks, "Excuse me, are you Tom Hanks?" Tom blushes slightly, gesturing as if to say he prefers to remain incognito. But the woman's excitement and gratitude cannot be hidden any longer. She explains how his films helped her through difficult times, and how one of the characters he played inspired her not to give up. Her voice is sincere and filled with immense respect. Suddenly, the man in the suit stiffens. He realizes that this ordinary guy is not just some random poor fellow. The other passengers, overhearing the conversation, begin to whisper. The situation shifts. Now many recognize Tom, yet they cannot believe their eyes. What is he doing on the metro? Why isn't he riding in a limousine? They seem to wonder in their bewildered stares. The man with the tie pales, feeling embarrassed as his sarcastic remarks now sound foolish and out of place. Still, he is not ready to admit his mistake, so he falls silent and turns toward the window as if nothing had happened. A tense silence settles over the car. On one side, the astonished passengers now look at Tom Hanks with genuine admiration. On the other, the man in the suit appears to have lost all his arrogance but is unwilling to acknowledge it openly. His friend sitting nearby shrugs in confusion and then turns his attention to his phone, hoping to avoid further awkwardness. The young woman with the child cannot hide her joy at meeting the actor whose films once gave her hope in dark times. In a soft voice, she recounts how, after a painful divorce, she had to raise her son on her own, and during those moments she would watch old Tom Hanks films to rekindle her belief in goodness. The child, listening to her, has ceased crying and now looks at Tom with curiosity. It seems he, too, senses that the man before them is not just a famous celebrity, but someone who brings hope to others. "You have no idea," the woman whispers, so as not to disturb the other passengers, "how much your roles inspired me to start over. I felt that the world was cruel, that I couldn't cope. And then I watched a movie and thought, if this hero could overcome everything, then so can I." Tom only smiles gently and replies, "I'm glad my films have helped someone. But remember, true strength lies within you. You have already proven that by overcoming your trials." These softly spoken words make the woman straighten her shoulders. Then, the boy suddenly reaches out to Tom and, blinking his big eyes, asks, "May I shake your hand?" Tom, slightly embarrassed, extends his hand. The boy nods seriously, as if performing an important ritual, and everyone smiles. This brief handshake becomes a touching symbol of understanding between ordinary people and those who are often seen as unreachable. However, the joyful pause is short-lived. The man in the suit coughs nervously, making it clear that he is extremely displeased with the situation. He casts Tom a sidelong glance and hisses, "Sure, you're an actor, but is it really that difficult to have a personal driver, or at least a taxi? Why ride in a crowded metro, stirring up a fuss?" The question hangs in the air, but Tom does not immediately react. He understands that the man's words carry irritation and perhaps even envy. Yet something tells him that behind this external arrogance lies an inner conflict. Perhaps the man has his own problems that no one knows about. The metro continues its journey, and the train, clattering over the tracks, enters another station. The doors open, some passengers disembark, and the car becomes a bit emptier. This allows everyone a little extra room to breathe, and someone moves to a newly vacated seat. The teenager with the guitar seizes the moment, rises, and moves closer to the exit. His stop is near. But before the doors close, he timidly looks at Tom and says, "Thank you. I used to think famous people were arrogant, but you are different." Tom smiles and replies, "Good luck, and don't give up on music. Maybe someday I'll hear you on a big stage." The teenager nods, and as the doors shut, the car starts moving again, with station lights flashing past the windows. The man in the suit remains tense, intermittently glancing at his neighbors, the elderly woman, the young mother, and Tom. At one point, he seems to change his approach. Instead of harshness, his voice now carries weariness. "All right," he concedes, trying to sound calm. "Perhaps I got carried away. But you must understand," he adds, addressing Tom, "for those of us in business, the metro is merely a means of transportation, not a venue for concerts and confessions." "And who said that concerts and confessions are forbidden here?" interjects the elderly woman with the cane, in a quiet but resolute tone. "I spent my entire life as a nurse, and you know, some of the most important conversations in my life have taken place in the most unexpected locations. When you sit with a patient, holding his hand in a hospital corridor, or when you travel home on a crowded bus after a night shift, the place doesn't matter when it comes to genuine feelings." The man bites his lip, not expecting such a response. It seems he was ready to argue, but he falls silent, unable to find the right words. The woman continues, turning to Tom. "I saw you in a film once, where you played a man who, despite all difficulties, never stopped believing in the goodness of life. And I decided then that nothing was in vain, that even if we lose loved ones or fall ill, hope must remain inside us." "Thank you for those words," Tom replies with a warm smile, "but your profession is truly heroic. Supporting people when they are most vulnerable is an immense responsibility." The woman blushes. Slightly, tears of gratitude glistening in her eyes. The man in the suit watches the scene with bewilderment. Perhaps he wished to retort sharply, but he understood that he could not dispute the power of kindness and warmth filling the car. As the train gathers speed, it whizzes past several stations in a row. Outside, the dim lights of the tunnel flash by, and inside the car, Everyone sits in tense anticipation, as if aware that something important is about to happen. And indeed, a minute later the car suddenly brakes. The lights flicker several times, a sharp screech is heard, and the train comes to a halt between stations. Over the speakers, the conductor announces that a brief technical malfunction has occurred. Passengers are advised to remain calm and wait until the journey resumes. The atmosphere shifts instantly. Some people become nervous, others begin calling loved ones, while a few quietly sigh in anticipation of a delay. The man in the suit grips the handrail, muttering about an important meeting he cannot afford to miss. Tom, on the other hand, remains calm. He understands that sometimes in life, one must simply accept the situation, as not everything is within our control. Noticing the man's agitation, Tom asks, "Would you like me to bring you some water from the vending machine if a Metro employee happens to pass by?" "No," the man snaps, though now his tone carries only irritation rather than outright aggression. "I just want to get out of here as soon as possible." He sighs heavily and after a pause adds, "Listen, I was rude. Perhaps you didn't deserve such words." This admission catches Tom off guard. Turning to the man, he sees that the arrogance has faded from his face, replaced instead by fatigue and a hint of dejection. "We all lose our temper sometimes," Tom says softly. "What matters is that you realize it. Maybe you'd like to share what's been troubling you." The man hesitates. It seems not easy for him to open up in front of strangers, but as the hum of the metro quiets, he overcomes an inner barrier and begins. I'm Mark. I work for a large company in finance. The past few months, my wife and I haven't been getting along, and my children hardly see me because I'm always at work. I feel like I've cornered myself. And when I saw you in that simple outfit with that smile, I suddenly felt that—" He trails off, searching for words. "I felt that someone can be happy even without all those attributes we call status," Tom gently prompts, his voice filled with deep understanding. "Yes," Mark agrees, "and it made me angry, made me feel unhappy, because it seems I've achieved so much, yet inside I feel empty." The elderly woman, who has been listening intently, quietly remarks, "Sometimes we chase after external success and forget that true value lies in our loved ones, our health, and those little things that bring us joy." The young mother, holding her child on her lap, nods. "When I was left alone with my child, I realized that without the support of loved ones and a kind word, even the greatest wealth cannot overcome loneliness." These heartfelt words seem to resonate within Mark. He closes his eyes, as if trying to reassess his life in just a few minutes. "You know," he finally says, "maybe I should stop, take a deep breath, and rethink my priorities." Tom smiles and replies, "It's never too late to change." At that moment, the train jolts, and the conductor's voice announces, "Dear passengers, the malfunction has been resolved, and we will now resume our journey." The car creaks back to life and slowly moves forward. Everyone exhales in relief, realizing they will soon emerge from the underground captivity. When the train reaches the final station, the passengers begin gathering their belongings and heading for the exit. The elderly woman smiles at Tom, nodding her thanks as a farewell. The young mother with her child also bids goodbye, saying that this day will be remembered as one of the warmest moments in recent times. "Thank you," she repeats, looking at Tom with respect and heartfelt gratitude. "You showed me that miracles happen not only in movies." Tom wishes to reply but senses that words are unnecessary. Her eyes already reflect a gratitude that needs no explanation. The child waves, and they disappear into the flow of departing passengers. Mark, the same man in the suit, pauses momentarily as he waits for the aisle to clear. He hesitates, then turns to Tom. In his gaze is a mix of awkwardness and newfound understanding. I probably will never be able to express everything I feel right now, but you helped me realize something important. Perhaps I was simply tired of everything, and you reminded me that there are things in life more important than work and status." Tom nods politely. "Take care of yourself, and remember, the most precious things in life are those that money can't buy." Mark offers a faint smile. "Thank you. I'll try not to forget." He extends his hand to Tom, and they exchange a firm handshake that has shed any trace of the earlier arrogance. A handshake between two people who have come to realize that we are all simply human, with our own fears, hopes, and quests for happiness. After Mark departs, Tom finds himself almost alone in the car. The metro is preparing to switch tracks, and only a few passengers remain gathering their things. Tom sinks into an empty seat, feeling a pleasant weariness. In the course of this short ride, he has become both a participant and a witness to a multitude of emotions: mockery, anger, remorse, gratitude, and joy.